The European pickup truck market is a modest one. First, it's predominantly medium-sized pickup trucks. Secondly, fewer units are sold annually in Europe than Ford sells its F-Series models in the United States in a single quarter. And thirdly, the European market is dominated by Ford Ranger. Following the principle, if you can't beat them, join them, Volkswagen joined Ford, and so the new Amarok is a Ranger underneath. Is this enough to reap the rewards? Let's find out. The Volkswagen Amarok has been in production since 2010. I suppose VW needed a pickup truck in its commercial vehicles range. Also, the Amarok has always had a pleasant interior compared to its competitors, especially those from Asia. One felt quality and practicality behind the wheel of the German pickup. But in 2019, Ford and Volkswagen announced a global collaboration that, among other things, produced a Ford Tourneo based on the Volkswagen Caddy. The new Ford Explorer is more or less a VW ID.4 on Volkswagen's MEB platform, and the Volkswagen Amarok is a Ford Ranger made at the Ford plant in South Africa. Judging by the success of the Ford F-Series, there is no doubt that Ford knows a thing or two about pickup trucks. But did Ford allow Volkswagen to simply rebadge the Ranger? Unfortunately, no. Let's start with the positives. The new Amarok is much larger than its predecessor. At 535 centimeters, it is almost 10 centimeters longer than the first-generation model. The wheelbase has lengthened by more than 17 centimeters to 327, which translates into more interior space, especially in the rear. And since the wheelbase has increased more than the overall length of the vehicle, this means shorter overhangs and better approach and departure angles. Wading depth has increased from 50 to 80 centimeters. Payload capacity has also increased from a ton to a ton and 160 kilograms, of course depending on the version and the market because emissions. As in the first generation, also here the Euro pallet fits across between the wheel arches, and the short cab version, available in some markets, even accommodates 2 Euro pallets. There is an electrically operated tonneau cover which can be opened and closed using a remote control, a button inside the bed or a button in the cabin, but only when the car is parked. Lifestyle customers will appreciate that the roof can withstand a static load of up to 350 kilograms. That's more than in the Land Rover Defender, so even a 4-person tent can be fitted. Depending on the market, 4-cylinder engines are available, diesel and petrol producing between 150 and 302 horsepower, as well as a diesel V6 with 240 or even 250 horsepower in some markets. The diesel V6 is mated to a 10-speed automatic transmission. The Amarok can tow up to 3.5 tons depending on the market and the powertrain. All powertrains are made by Ford. And now for the downsides. I don't know if it's a matter of an agreement with Ford that the Amarok cannot be better than the Ranger or just VW's lack of experience in pickup design, but the Amarok doesn't have those side steps here that would make it easier to get into the bed, and the Ranger has them. Surprisingly few mid-size pickup trucks have them as standard. On the tailgate there are no ports to mount clamps, which come in handy when cutting things. Apparently nobody thinks someone could actually work from the back of an Amarok. The rear seat. Now, in order to raise it, you have to pull a strap which is in a front pocket here in the middle. I couldn't find it, so I spent 20 minutes trying to get it out from the bottom side, but it's better to pull it out from the pocket because then there's a hook which you attach to the center armrest to keep this thing in an upright position. Your back will not appreciate it.
In the Ranger, in order to release the seat, you pull a strap on either side so you don't have to lean towards the middle of the cabin, and the seat locks in its upright position. Storage under the seat is small. Jeep did a great job in the Gladiator, but Ford and VW didn't bother. It's better in the Hilux, where storage is closed, so there's a flat step on which you can place some luggage, not only on the floor, and also in the Hilux, the seat splits 40-60, so people can sit in the back and some luggage can travel there as well.
Another downside is the infotainment system. Like Ford, also VW has this large vertical display, but Ford left knobs for climate control, while Volkswagen only has a volume knob and a few shortcut buttons. But in order to set the temperature, you have to use the touchscreen interface, which leads to situations like this.
Sure, you turn the car off for a couple of minutes and everything is back to normal, but it's clear VW still has software issues.
So that's my brief list of positives and negatives, and now let's go back to the truck bed. You can unlock the tailgate with a key, but it's also connected to the central lock. Now the tailgate is very light, and also there should be like a measuring scale on it, but with the protective liner comes a rubber strip which covers up the measuring tape.
Volkswagen states that the length of the bed is 165 centimeters. It seems that the protective liner takes away as much as 5 centimeters in length. According to my measurements, it comes out about 160 centimeters. By the way, the tonneau cassette subtracts almost half a meter of truck bed length from the height of about 25 centimeters upwards, so pack your cargo accordingly. And this tonneau cover is not something you'll remove in a couple of minutes with a wrench and a screwdriver. The width of the bed between the wheel arches, even with the lining, should be more than 120 centimeters, so there will be no problem like in the Mercedes X-Class, where the width was 120 centimeters but only without the liner. At its widest point, the bed is over 158 centimeters. The height is 52.5 centimeters, but under the tonneau cover and with the liner it's about 50 centimeters. While the bed is lit, it's mainly the lower section. In the X-Class there was a light from the top. There's a 12-volt outlet in the back next to the tonneau cover button. We move on to the rear seat. Getting in is easier thanks to the handles on the B-pillars. The door pockets barely fit my water bottle. There is plenty of legroom. I'm 175 centimeters tall and the driver's seat is set to my driving position. Also, the headroom is surprisingly good. I can sit even in a helmet on. I couldn't do this in the X-Class or the Navara. There's an air vent in the middle, and underneath it are a 230-volt outlet and a 12-volt socket. There are cup holders in the armrest, but they are too small. I mentioned raising the seat, but you can also drop the backrest, and this opens up some usable space for stuff which you don't want to transport in the truck bed.
Also in the cockpit there are those extra grab handles, this time on the A-pillars. It makes getting in easier. They're also useful, but mainly for the passenger to hold on for their dear life when the car shakes on rough terrain. Now, from behind the steering wheel you see some Volkswagen and some Ford switchgear. So the steering wheel is from VW and fortunately it still has physical buttons. The rest is Ford. Now, I have no problem with this, I'm just stating the fact. And sure, I would have liked the old switch for the lights from VW, but I prefer the one offered by Ford from the new one that VW puts in its cars these days. Now, in front of the driver is a virtual display, nothing fancy. There's an imitation of an analog tach and speedometer, and 3 zones in which you can define what information you want displayed there. In the middle is an infotainment system display. Even if the software didn't crash on me, more than once. I believe that in a commercial vehicle, you should have as many physical controls as possible. This rig will be operated by people wearing gloves, so take lessons from Toyota. This isn't particularly good, is it? It's good that at least there are several shortcut buttons here on the bottom next to the volume knob.
Then there's a too small smartphone cubby with a USB port and a 12-volt socket, a gear shift lever, more about that in a moment, a knob to change the drive modes, and buttons for ESP, hill descent assist, and rear locker. There are cup holders, an armrest with medium-sized storage compartment, a medium-sized glove box, and another glove box above it, but with an oddly shaped opening. If it was chilled, I'd keep my water bottle in there, but it isn't. Good, there's a USB port by the mirror, useful for powering dash cams. There are also medium-sized door pockets.
Before we drive off, I want to show you something. This 10-speed transmission is a shift-by-wire or drive-by-wire system. It's called e-shifter, and this lever has no physical connection to the transmission. Even if you forget to put the car into park, when you turn the car off, the transmission will go into park by itself, which is a neat feature. The downside is that the lever is awkwardly shaped and there is a small button in the front that's hard to find, and there are small buttons on the side for the sequential gear change. In other shift-by-wire solutions, the lever stays in the same position regardless of where you pull it, so you don't have to play with the whole shifting. Anyway, let's go and drive this thing. Many warnings. Many warnings. It's an American car. Depending on the market, the Amarok is available in several trims. Here in Poland we only get three: Style, Panamericana and Aventura. Style is aimed at a fancy farmer, Panamericana is the most off-roady trim, while Aventura is the most luxurious of the three. As far as I know, there are two lesser specs in Germany, and these get less powerful engine options as well. I'm driving the Panamericana diesel V6, which comes on all-terrain tires as standard, and this affects the acceleration as well as fuel economy. So instead of around 10 liters per 100 kilometers, I'm averaging 11-12 liters combined, and instead of 8.8 seconds from 0 to 100 kilometers per hour, it takes more like 9.5 seconds according to my measurements.
Since I'm on all-terrain tires and this car has proper four-wheel drive, I decided to do a slightly more challenging obstacle than my diagonal approach test. I did manage to drive a Nissan X-Trail up this sandy hill. The Land Rover Defender did it no problem. My Mini Countryman, also on all-terrain tires, drove up but got stuck in the ruts at the top. But we had another car with a winch to pull it out. In the Amarok, you can choose the off-road settings yourself, i.e. you can choose four-wheel drive high or low, engage the rear locker, turn on hill descent control, etc., or you can rely on one of the pre-programmed off-road modes. To be honest, some of the cars I've driven here coped better, but a lot depends on the time of the year and the condition of the sand. On this day the sand was slightly damp but not compacted, so the Amarok needed a bit more momentum. But nothing got broken and we didn't get stuck, so I'll call it a success. Also, When I say we, I actually mean Anna, who does the driving when I'm flying the drone. A round of applause for her, because she still claims she can't drive off-road, and she only got a car stuck once, whereas I got stuck more times than I'd like to remember.
We're back on tarmac, where the Amarok is reasonably comfortable. The engine is a bit rough, but you're buying it for the 600 Nm of torque, not necessarily for refinement. While Land Rover Defender hardtop feels more like a car for people first than a commercial vehicle, the Amarok is clearly a truck. Small, but still a truck. The driver assist systems work well. I drove across the city in traffic with adaptive cruise control on, and I never touched the pedals. Play around with the settings for various systems to adjust them to your preferences.
Maneuvering is easier thanks to a 360 camera. There is also a parking assistant, but it doesn't use the E-shifter. You have to select drive and reverse yourself. Prices of the VW Amarok start at €39,590 net or €47,121 gross for the base spec 170 horsepower 2-liter diesel with a manual transmission. That's a good $3,000 more than the base spec double cab Ford Ranger. And yes, you can have a single cab Ranger in Europe. The Panamericana starts at almost $58,000 net or $69,000 gross. With options, this car costs €60,611 net or €72,127 including VAT. A similarly spec'd Ford Ranger Wildtrak costs about €1,500 less.
Looking at the Amarok and Ranger prices, I get the impression that VW version of the pickup truck doesn't even have the price going for it. I wish it was an ordinary rebadging exercise, but unfortunately it's not. I guess Ford Ranger will continue dominating the European pickup truck market. And what do you think about the new VW Amarok? Let me know in the comment section below.
If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.